Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for December 28th, 2017. Finally, we are back from holiday vacation. This is Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast are...
Jacob Hall.
Ben Pearson.
Brad Oman.
Hoai-Tran,
Chris Evangelista.
So the entire Slash Film team, or the core team, is here today, and news is still slow, so we're going to be talking about what we saw and did over the holidays and our favorite Christmas gifts. But before we get to that, we had a couple of emails that I wanted to read in reaction to our holiday special, where we talked about our favorite Christmas movies. Hayden writes in that he's arguing that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Quote, if you break the plot down, it's the typical Christmas story. A distant father who has to go on an adventure to rekindle the relationship with his family. I think all the Christmas movies have that same exact plot device. Also, it's important to say that it takes place on Christmas Eve because police actively would be down. If It's a Wonderful Life counts, which it should, then Die Hard should as well. A very massive chunk of the film doesn't even take place on Christmas. So, Jacob, you are the one person on the staff that is vehemently against Die Hard as a Christmas movie. Why is Hayden wrong?
I'm sure Hayden is a very nice person, and this is a very well-written email. So Hayden, when I say you're wrong, I say it with respect, the way I respect a great enemy as opposed to an enemy I defeat instantly. Now, in all seriousness, I get this argument, and I don't want to make a huge deal of this because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. I just feel like It's a Wonderful Life taps into the emotions and themes that swirl around the holiday season, the way we reflect on ourselves, and the way we take into account our lives as we approach a new year and take stock of everything we've done, whether it be that day, that week, that month, that year, or that lifetime, where Die Hard is just still the greatest action movie of all time. And that's fine. It's just set at Christmas. And I don't think it taps into those themes in any way other than just being about a family, most of whom aren't in the movie very much at all. So it's fine. It's a really good email, Hayden. Thank you. I respect that. You're allowed to be right. I'm allowed to be wrong in your eyes. It's great. Cool. Merry Christmas.
And Leanne R. from Los Angeles writes in that the Rankin Bass Christmas special should have been on our list, which I agree. Yeah, those are great TV specials, and we did mention some other TV specials like Mickey's Christmas Carol and A Charlie Brown Christmas. She also brings up the Santa Claus, which wouldn't have been on any of my list, but I'm not sure about you guys. And Nora Ephron's Sleepless in Seattle and You've Got Mail, which almost made my list. I actually have a soft spot for You've Got Mail, as dated as that is. But you can read our whole email in the show notes. But I just wanted to bring up those because when you guys write insightful emails, I like to bring it up on the show. But let's get into what we've been doing over the holidays. Jacob, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been traveling all over the state of Texas. San Antonio for my family, Dallas for my wife's family. So I actually haven't had as much time to do as much of anything as I would like to. I've been in cars, and I've been doing social obligations, and I've been trying to escape from social obligations by looking at my phone in other rooms. So while everyone else has things I've been catching up with that are actually probably a bit more interesting than mine, I've mostly been just catching up and finishing up on things that I've already mentioned in the podcast before. I finished Season 2 of Ultimate Beastmaster, and I know someone else has watched it, so I'll wait a little bit to talk about that in detail. Season 2 is really fun. It's more of the same thing as Season 1. It's probably the best physical competition reality show I've ever seen, and I dig it for reasons beyond watching strong people do strong things, but I'll get to that later. But I also caught up, I finished American Vandal, which we've talked about on the show before. Netflix's fake documentary series about a high school student who supposedly vandalizes teachers' cars, but it's presented in a very straight-faced parody of serial-esque true crime stories, documentaries. And it's really good, and it's really funny, and it has a left-field turn about three-quarters of the way through that redefines what it is. It makes it a really powerful portrait of being young in the year 2017, and I was not expecting it to hit me as hard as it did, and it really did. I got around to seeing The Shape of Water, finally, Guillermo del Toro's melodrama, fairy tale, horror story that I found incredibly moving, incredibly wonderful. We're publishing our top 10 movies of the year lists next week on Slash Film. This is on the top 10. I'm not sure where it falls yet, but no one makes movies like Del Toro, and it's just this. It's a magical movie, and I think we throw around the word magical a lot whenever time something delights us. But he has a old school sense of storytelling that it feels like it's been torn from another time.
Oh, it feels like a modern classic already, just after seeing it.
Yeah, and we've talked about the movie before, and we'll talk about it more next week as we discuss best of the year stuff, so I don't want to talk too much. But don't take your mom, but take everybody else. It's a really, really good movie, and it goes in way. I said this on Twitter in a more crass way, but this is what the Dark Universe should have been. Dark Universe, instead of going $100 million on a mummy movie starring Tom Cruise, they should have gave Guillermo del Toro $20 million to make these really strange, specific, personal horror tales that have elements we've never seen before. I think that's how you want to approach monsters.
By the way,
this
is probably the most expensive looking $20 million film I've ever seen.
It looks great. And we have an article about this going up on the site written by Ben Pearson. Hi, Ben, you're here.
Hey.
That goes into how he managed to save that money and cut corners. And I recommend you read that. We'll put that in the show notes. And finally, I played a bunch of games. I played more Wolfenstein 2, which I discussed on the podcast a little while back, the first-person shooter video game set in alternate reality 1960s, where the Nazis won World War II. And I dwelled on the politics of the game last time I spoke about it, because the movie, it's a very politically motivated game. It has a perspective. It hates Nazis. I think we can all agree. But once it reaches a halfway point, it still maintains that political perspective, but starts going bonkers. It goes insane in ways I was not expecting. So even though out the gameplay is great, the controls are a little sticky. I do not like them. But it is by far the craziest thing I've experienced in 2017 in terms of plot. And I don't want to recommend going on YouTube and watching craziest scenes because they play better in context. But man, a game goes places. It goes for it. And finally, I know Peter's going to talk about this in a little bit, but I did play some board games. I played Mondo's New The Thing board game. I'll talk about that more a little bit when Peter gets to it. I will be reviewing it for the Cardboard Cinema column here on Slash Film. I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I like it. I'll say that much. I also played Pitch Card, a game I would recommend to more casual gamers, which is essentially Shark Tank for maniacs, where you essentially have to pitch companies based on the cards in your hand, and it ends up being things like pitching Jurassic Park for libertarians, or Snuggies for barn animals. And it's a very clever, very creative game. Got everybody at the table laughing a lot. It's really good. It just finished its Kickstarter last year, and copies are just now arriving, but I imagine it'll be more widely available very soon. And that's my holiday. I'm very sick, by the way. I hope it doesn't sound like it, but I am.
And that sounds like a party game for like people that like Cards Against Humanity but want to be more creative.
Exactly. Like a Fun Employed in Snake Oil, where it gives you a setup for a joke, but you have to finish a joke. I understand there's a place for Cards Against Humanity. I'm a little over it. I'm a little tired of it because it's not a very clever game. It's just a funny game. Whereas these are games that are funnier because you can add your personal touch to them. So if that sounds appealing to you, then go for it. It's a really great game.
Okay, so what I did over the weekend, last week on the podcast, I talked about how I kind of got sucked back into Survivor this season, and I'm not going to dwell upon that, but over the last 5 days, my girlfriend and I have binge watched 2 seasons of Survivor, past seasons that we had not seen. As I said on the last podcast, I haven't watched this show since like the first couple seasons. So seeing this past season was kind of like an eye opener. And, I kind of enjoy, games of traders and, Jacob just mentioned The Thing, which I'll talk about in a second. So Survivor is kind of a fun game for me. And I watched 2 seasons that were recommended to me by Jermaine Lucier, who used to write for the site. Now he's at IO9. He recommended Heroes vs. Villains, which are some of the all-time greatest heroes and villains on that show pitted against each other. And Kagayan, I think is how you pronounce it, which was an interesting season where they had 3 teams, the Brawn versus the Brains versus the Beauty, which going into that season, spoilers for Survivor, but I had assumed that the Brawn would do well because, they're physically powerful and can get the, the physical challenges. And I had assumed that the Brains would be strong because they could do the puzzles, well. And I assumed that the Beauty would be knocked out. I was wrong on 2 out of the 3 of those accounts. It turns out that nerds are not good at physical challenges and, probably not good at, being put in, the middle of like an intense situation and having to problem solve on the fly. And, Beauty is, the team of beauties, was very well at, integrating themselves socially into the game. And, even if they weren't good at the physical challenges and stuff, being kept around until the end. But one of the most interesting things about this is, I wanted to say, and I don't want to, talk too much about Survivor, but, it's an interesting game because I'm not sure if how many of you guys have seen this, but, each week the tribes vote someone out. And in the end, it comes down to 2 or 3 people, and the last 8 people that were voted out get to vote on who wins Survivor. So on a season like Heroes vs. Villains, there was a guy that like was in control of the game the entire time, kicked, major ass, was a villain. He was doing evil things. He was blindsiding people. He was, turning on people. And in the end, he should have won the show. But because the 8 people that vote who wins at the end are the people that he screwed over, the person who wins is, the person that was the most likable person. So it's actually an interesting game because, it's the only game I know that you can lose by being too good at the game.
Peter, that's actually exactly what happened on the most recent season of Big Brother, which is my reality guilty pleasure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the person who was in control of the game the entire time, Paul, who was like master puppeteer, pulling all the strings, getting people voted out, like when he wasn't even the head of household. He went all the way to the end, and he lost because he had ended up screwing over so many people and lying to so many people to win the game that they didn't vote for him to win in the end.
Yeah, it's almost as if the game is to be the nicest you possibly can to everybody else, to align yourself with the evil people, but not, have their slime kind of ick off on you, and in the end be there beside them so that you can, take the win from them, which is, it's interesting. But, another thing I watched over, the holiday break was, there's this new show on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us. Brad, have you seen this?
I haven't watched it yet. I wrote about it for the site when the trailer came out, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet.
Yeah, it's 4 episodes, hour-long episodes. The first episode is about Star Wars. And I think it's worth watching. I think it's interesting because they talk to a lot of the people involved, like the people at Kenner, which I never knew, but apparently when, George Lucas was making Star Wars, he didn't want to get a toy license. Well, I did know this. He didn't want to get a toy license early on because he was afraid of designs leaking out, a la, J.J. Abrams and all the stuff we hear today. So 6 months before the movie came out, they actually searched for a toy license, and almost all the toy companies turned them down. Kenner wasn't even a big toy company at the time, and they took it on. And, because of that, they were able to, I think the original deal was that they give George Lucas 2.5% of all sales and 20th Century Fox 2.5% of all sales, and they kept 95% of all the toy money made by Star Wars. But it's kind of the story of Kenner's rise in the toy world, the Star Wars toys that we remember, some of the the big rare ones. I guess my disappointment with the series is that it has the ability to get in depth and get interesting, but at times, because it's only an hour long, it kind of feels surface level, and a lot of stuff that, like, if you're a Star Wars fan, you probably already know about that whole story. But I would recommend it. I'm not sure if I'm going to watch the other episodes. There's, I think, episodes on He-Man and Barbie and G.I. Joe. I might watch, He-Man because I was big into He-Man as a kid, and I would like to hear the story behind how those were made. But, yeah, so you can find that on Netflix. That is the toys that made us. And I also, played some board games, including, the Thing, Infection at Outpost 31, which, Jacob mentioned. It's enjoyable. It's based on the movie The Thing. You are at an outpost and, one of you is infected. No one knows which one. And that person is trying to sabotage the mission. And as the game goes on, other people can become infected. I played it with 4 players and I felt like it's a fun, streamlined game, but, you know, it's tough to go into this conversation when it's not a board game podcast or something, because I know that I'm talking to a more generalized audience, but, usually these kind of games with hidden traders have some kind of randomized element to them where like you're contributing supplies and someone can screw up that, contribution, but they usually add like a random card in there or something. In this game, that doesn't happen. So, what I found, and I'm interested to hear, Jacob, if you found this too, is that for the trader, for the person that was infected, it was very hard to actually screw over the game because there was almost no time for you to like put something in there and lie about it because everybody knew what everybody submitted. Does that make sense? Jacob, did you have that problem in your game?
I initially thought I would have that problem. I played with 5 players. And what ended up happening is unlike most hidden trader games where the trader is actively encouraged to seek out and destroy and sabotage at all costs, much like the movie, and this is actually my favorite touch of how the game really captures the John Carpenter film really well, is the infected player is encouraged to blend in. They could play the entire game actively helping at every single turn and make it a completely conflict-free game. As long as they're on the helicopter at the end and escape the base, the Thing wins. So what ended up happening in my game is the Thing player blended in so well and was so inconspicuous that all the other players started turning on each other. Things were going too well. Things were going too right. They started not trusting each other and started taking things way too personally and started looking at every single little detail. And when one player had an unfortunate hand of cards where she couldn't help in a very specific task, they all turned on her, even though she wasn't the infected character.
Oh,
and everything
wow.
broke down and fell apart in a matter of turns. And so when it went from being like a coasting to victory to total destruction in about 10 minutes. And it was really good, and I really liked it. And I have an interview with Mondo's Jay Shaw that'll go up in conjunction with the review, where he talks about how he wanted to make a game that was very accessible for new players, people who weren't heavy board gamers. And I played this with a group who were people who had seen the Thing, people who hadn't seen the Thing, people who had played lots of hidden trader board games, people who hadn't played a lot of them, and everybody walked away having had a good time. So one thing I'd recommend is that I think 4 may be a little too few for this. I would try playing with 5 or 6. It plays up to 8. I think that the more people you have around the table, the more fingers you can wave, the more fun it's going to be.
Yeah.
And
I kind of got that impression.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean, go ahead, sorry.
No, I think my big problem with it, yes, I love how streamlined it is, how accessible it is for new players, but I do feel like the dominating strategy, if you are an infected player, is to play it like you are not an infected player, and I think that is bad. But I don't know. Because, you know, you aren't playing the game then. You're basically just hoping that they don't figure you out. But, that's my opinion on the game. And I know you're going to have a huge write up about this on Cardboard Cinema. So, you could talk in depth about it then. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah. But HT, what have you been up to?
So everything I watched over the holidays was in the context of what I saw with my family, which I went on sort of a short family trip with my mom's side of the family to Asheville, North Carolina, where we spent the whole weekend. We rented an Airbnb and just kind of went around to a lot of the breweries there, went hiking, all that kind of stuff. And I have a couple of younger cousins who I'm pretty close with, and we would just kind of all have a little sleepover in the living room and watch Netflix movies together. So what we ended up watching was a lot of really bad Netflix Christmas movies, which was a great time. So you might have heard of A Christmas Prince, which was this infamous Netflix film that came out just this year. It's about a spunky journalist who goes to this fictional country called Aldovia to report on this prince who is soon going to be coronated on Christmas Day, and he disappears, and eventually they fall in love, and she does a lot of really unethical journalist things and is a cute, quirky, clumsy heroine because she keeps running into vases and everything. It's got all the tropes of a bad rom-com, but it was so bad that it was enjoyable. It was just gushing with all this over sentimentality and bad production design. Like, it looked good, but it was obvious that a lot of the drone shots of this castle were of like this gingerbread castle model. So it was a fun time, and we watched that one on Christmas Eve, so the night before Christmas Eve, and then the next night we watched A Christmas Inheritance, which is like the Middle America Netflix Christmas movie about a woman who is this rich heiress who goes to this town that her dad grew up in middle of nowhere America to learn about the true values of Christmas. It's also awful.
Of course.
And it's actually much worse than A Christmas Prince, because at least A Christmas Prince was somewhat enjoyable. This one was just a little bit, I don't know, heavy-handed in terms of like how its messaging was. So that was not as good of a time, although we were decidedly drunker for A Christmas Inheritance, so that was okay. And then we did more Netflixing with the rest of the family for Ultimate Beastmaster. Jacob mentioned it before. I am the person who finally watched it. He kind of piqued my interest when he was speaking about it in the last podcast. And I don't really watch a lot of like competitive obstacle course shows. I've seen like maybe a couple clips from American Ninja Warrior, but this was like American Ninja Warrior times 100. It's so silly and so fun and kind of pure-hearted in a way. I think Jacob was talking about this earlier. It's just like everyone has good sportsmanship. They just want people to win. And even though it's just like this brute physicality about it, there's just like an earnestness to it that's really fun to watch. And I watched it with my entire family on my mom's side, which is about 16 people. And it's a smaller side of my family because I talked about earlier having like about 30 on my other side. So everyone was watching it, including my cousins, my grandma, who got really invested. She was gasping every time someone fell, and everyone got really into it. It was just a fun family bonding moment. And the last thing I did, since North Carolina, we drove down there on a road trip. It's about a 7-hour drive down from Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, where I am. My sister and I went together separately from the rest of our family, and my sister has been kind of urging me to listen to the Hamilton soundtrack, even though I have been adamantly trying to not listen to it until I see the show. I'm kind of the opinion that if I want to see a Broadway show, I want to go into it fresh and experience the songs in the context of the story and the show, rather than like listening to the soundtrack first and like knowing the songs, because I don't really like that as context experience.
And this soundtrack is the show, right? Like
yeah, it is the show, and like I know that that's the kind of the reason people are saying like you should listen to it anyways because you'll just get the whole gist of the show. But I want to see it as well as listen to it, not just like hear this sort of really good spoken word album in a way. So we did listen to it on the way back, and I liked it. I knew I would. I'd already listened to about half the songs anyway, so I guess like the surprise was gone. So it was a really good soundtrack. I've been listening to it again this morning, and now, yes, I'm on board the Hamilton train, even though I was planning to see it at some point, you know, whenever it comes to DC, I think next year. So that was my Christmas. There's a lot of watching bad Christmas movies with great people, watching a competitive reality show, listening to an old soundtrack that I've been trying to avoid, but I enjoyed anyways. So that was my holidays.
Chris, what have you been up to over the holidays?
I haven't been doing a whole lot. On Christmas Day, my wife and I went and saw The Last Jedi. She hadn't seen it yet. This is my second time seeing it. And it's still good. I still like it. I picked up on a few things I didn't notice the first time. I don't want to go into them because I guess there's a chance that some people haven't seen it yet, and that'll be spoilers. But I don't know. I remain a little befuddled at the strange backlash to this film. I think it's pretty great. Other than that, I've just been sort of reading. I got some books for Christmas, and my wife's out of town right now. She went to Massachusetts to visit her family, and I stayed here to watch the dogs and work and stuff like that. So I've literally just been laying around the house reading and making a effort to avoid looking at my phone when I'm reading because, part of my job entails that I have to look at my phone, for news. But, even though I'm looking for entertainment news, political news often seeps in there and just makes me miserable. So being able to just put my phone down for a few hours and just read books and not focus on how terrible the world is. It's like going away to a spa. It's very relaxing to just not have to look at that news for a few hours. So if you out there can put your phone down for even like an hour, I recommend it.
Did you read any good books?
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of books on just, my family, they know I'm into movies, so they always buy me books on movies. And so right now I'm reading Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, which is about, the new Hollywood movement of, Scorsese and Coppola and Spielberg and how they came in and basically took over Hollywood and destroyed the studio system. And it's great so far. It's very good. Yeah. So
that is a fantastic book. I'd recommend that to anybody who, wants to know more about the history of film in modern cinema. Let's move on to Ben. Ben, what have you been up to?
I was in Florida visiting my family for the holidays. I went and saw The Last Jedi again, just like Chris. And again, just like Chris, it's still very good. I love that movie. We also watched It's a Wonderful Life, which we talked about on our Christmas movie episode that we put up earlier this week. My wife had never seen It's a Wonderful Life all the way through before. So that was a first for her. And just, I'd seen it probably for... It was maybe the 50th time I've seen it or something like that. But I really like that movie a lot. And for all the reasons that Jacob mentioned so eloquently on our Christmas movie episode. So I won't retread those, but it's a great, great film. I watched Logan Lucky with my parents and my wife, and I think my sister and her husband were there. Now I don't even remember. I was in Florida for like 10 days or something, coming and going with all sorts of various mixtures of family members sort of floating in and out the whole time. So Logan Lucky I thought was a good pick just for like a sort of right down the middle, nice breezy family kind of movie that wasn't going to offend anyone or be, any sort of controversial choice in any way. I was reminded of the fantastic Game of Thrones joke that's in that movie that I won't ruin for anyone if you haven't seen it, but man, it is great. It is so good. And it's one of those things that I hope is going to make it onto our larger list that we're planning right now of like the best movie moments of films in 2017. So look for that on slashfilm.com in the coming days and weeks. Also, I had a chance to see Mudbound, which was the Netflix original movie by Dee Reese that I think that played or debuted at Sundance earlier this year. We've had a review up on slashfilm.com for a long time now, but I'm just now finally making time to see it as I'm sort of getting near the end of the year and whittling down my list of my favorite films and all that stuff. Mudbound I thought was really good. Again, just it's very. This is something that I've seen all over the place. It feels very novelistic. It just feels like a book come to life. Basically, it's a little predictable, but all the performances are really good, and the ending is great. I wanted to mention specifically the Directors Guild of America podcast, the DGA podcast. I was listening to the episode first. I guess for people who don't know, the DGA has a podcast called The Director's Cut, where a director of a movie is interviewed by another director who's a part of the Directors Guild. So the conversations about the movies are always really cool because it's other people who are, fans of those movies talking with the directors about how they got those films made, basically. So there's an episode on Mudbound with Dee Reese, who's the co-writer and director, and Mira Nair, who directed Queen of Katwe last year. I think that was a really good film too. You should check that one out if you haven't seen it. Underrated, nice little Disney movie. In any case, the interview basically confirmed that Dee Reese is directly responsible for all of the reasons that I thought the movie was really good and sort of, I guess, extended itself beyond just simply being a translation of a novel. It's sort of everything that took the movie to the next level. Dee Reese basically says in that interview that she's responsible for adding that stuff because it reminded her of elements of her own family life and things that she'd heard and seen in her past and all of this. So anyway, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Director's Cut DGA podcast. So if you guys are looking for more film related podcasts to listen to that one. And then finally, well, actually two more things real quickly. I saw A Ghost Story last night. Again, part of the end of the year catch up.
You're doing a lot of Sundance catch up too.
Yes, exactly. I didn't go to Sundance last year, but I will be going for Slash Film this year, beginning of 2018. So I'm looking forward to that. But A Ghost Story, man, I was not expecting where this movie goes. And again, I don't want to really give anything away, but it's one that I'd seen a lot of people talking about. And I sort of knew Rooney Mara eats a pie and Casey Affleck wears a ghost sheet. And that was basically all I knew about the movie. So structurally, I had no clue that this movie basically takes a huge turn a few minutes, probably halfway or a little less than halfway into it. And I was sort of blown away by just structurally what the movie does. I'm still wrestling with it, whether or not I think it's a great movie or anything like that. It also sort of looks like Instagram the movie. Every shot is sort of perfectly composed and framed to, and the whole thing looks like all the colors are straight out of an Instagram filter. But it's a movie that I didn't really connect with on an emotional level that I think a lot of other people probably will and have. So take that as you will. And then finally, just so I can stop talking, I saw The Good Place. I realized that this is on Netflix. I've heard so many people recommend the show, and my wife and I started watching it. I think we got 4 episodes in. We both loved Parks and Recreation when that was on, and a lot of the same creative people are involved with The Good Place, and you can feel it in the best ways possible with the little jokes and just the writing style. The performances are all pretty solid so far too, but really the writing is what's selling me on the show so far. I am also from Jacksonville, Florida, and one of the main characters in the first few episodes is from Jacksonville, and he's an aspiring EDM DJ, and all of the Jacksonville-based humor on there. Jacksonville is a city that you don't really see represented too much in film or TV, but all of the jokes, it's so clear that somebody on that staff grew up in Jacksonville because the jokes are so specific and so funny. There's one part where these characters are sort of hanging out on a dock, and they are getting ready to throw a Molotov cocktail at a boat, and I won't really get into why, but right before the guy hurls the Molotov cocktail, his goofy buddy who's standing right next to him just screams the name Bortles, right before it, when Blake Bortles is the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, the football team. But there's no mention of that, nobody explains that. Nobody stops to do anything. He's just Bortles right before he throws it. And it's one of those things that if you don't know what that is, who that is, you're going to be what the hell did he just say? What is going on here? But it's so Jacksonville specific that I loved it. So yeah, that's my whirlwind holiday movie and TV watching.
Hey, let's get to Brad, who hasn't been around for a while. He's been off doing his student teaching, but he is now back with us. What have you been up to this holiday season?
I've just been trying to relax as much as possible for the most part, but I've also been taking the time to catch up on stuff that I missed or hadn't had time to see. So thankfully, I've been able to start my path down, catching up on award season contenders. So I saw The Disaster Artist finally. which I was extremely happy with. I haven't really been part of the quote unquote phenomenon that is The Room for until The Disaster Artist started getting buzz this year. So I went out of my way to see The Room before I saw The Disaster Artist, and I was really happy that I did, because it provides a lot of context for what you're seeing on screen, and it to me, it just made it funnier. Seeing all of the cameos and who they are playing from The Room just made it that much better. And they're just these little details that you can see elements that, they're trying to imply influence The Room, or why certain pieces are in The Room, based on what happens in The Disaster Artist. But besides that, it's a surprisingly endearing and charming movie. Like the relationship between James Franco and Dave Franco's characters is such like for lack of a better term, a bromantic relationship. You just I love their friendship and how they hurt each other, but they also really like each other. And it was just I really love this movie even more than I thought I was going to. Like, I thought I was going to love it for being just a great comedy, and it is that, but it's so much more than I thought it was going to be, and I loved it.
See, I was the opposite. I said this last week on the podcast, and I wanted to ask you about this, Brad, because I know it seems like you loved it more than you were expecting. I loved it a little less than I was expecting. I think what I was looking for out of this is looking for that same feeling I got with Brigsby Bear this year, which I know is a film you loved, which is also kind of about shooting for your dream, creativity, and that kind of theme. Where do you place this? Where do you place it between those two films?
That's a good question. That's something that I'm going to be figuring out here soon as I get my top 10 together. I still have a handful of movies I need to see before I really start thinking about that. But that's a good question that I don't have an answer for yet. Because I think I like them both for similar reasons, but then I also like certain parts more than others. And so, without getting too specific, because I don't necessarily want to give away anything that happens in Brigsby Bear or anything like that. But yeah, I think I like each movie for different reasons. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to compare them when it finally comes down to it. I think both will end up making my top 10. But yeah.
And you also saw Molly's Game.
I did. Yes, I just saw Molly's Game a couple days ago. I'm fortunate enough that even though I don't live in Los Angeles or New York, and I'm not part of a writers guild or a critics association, that I have friends who work in the industry who do get screeners and bring them home for the holidays. So I saw Molly's Game, and I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit. However, I will say that I did not like it as much as The Social Network. And I think part of it is because Aaron Sorkin isn't quite as stylish or engaging as a director as David Fincher is. But there's something about Molly's Game that just wasn't quite as engaging to me. I still think it's fantastic, and the script, of course, is excellent because Sorkin just knows how to write, incredible dialogue. It's an extremely sharp script, but I don't know. It's similar to The Social Network in a lot of ways, except that you actually like Molly Bloom as a character, and it's not so much about her trying to prove why she's, why she has worth or why people should respect her. It's more so about her living up to these impossible expectations, created by her father. And so, you identify a little bit more with her and you feel for her, as opposed to, the Mark Zuckerberg from The Social Network, who is, always kind of this jerk, even though he is doing it as a way of, trying to fit in and I guess be important. But I just didn't, connect with it the same way I did with The Social Network. It's still great. Jessica Chastain is fantastic in it, and there's a very interesting story to be told here. But yeah, I really liked it a lot, but did not love it as much as Social Network. And then I'm still, like I said, catching up on stuff. So the screeners that I have that I'm going to watch this week here to get my list finished up is the Post, which I'm extremely excited about because I love Spielberg. And I love movies about, important moments in history, especially involving the press like this. The Florida Project, which I heard nothing but good things about, that I'm excited to finally see. And then I'm also going to see I, Tonya this week as well, which I can't wait to see either. I don't think I'm going to be able to catch Phantom Thread before the time comes for me to put my list together, which I'm kind of bummed about. But I don't know. I've got some time to figure it out.
It wouldn't have made your top 10.
Peter and I do have very similar tastes, but there is some divergence here and there, and so I do wonder where this would land, because we do have similar tastes, especially when it comes to what we like about Paul Thomas Anderson. So, but yeah, otherwise I finally have had time to dig into just having some fun and playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, which, I just love because, being a soldier in the Star Wars galaxy is just really fun, even if, the game doesn't really improve upon much from the first game and it's just more of the same. It's just been great to sit down and relax and just check out of everything and, play a game for a little while. It's just been incredibly relaxing.
Brad, let me ask you something about that real quick. Have you been playing multiplayer or the single player campaign aspect?
I haven't done the campaign yet. I've just been doing multiplayer. Most of the times with games like this, especially Call of Duty, I barely make a dent in the campaign. I just like the instant action, jumping in and playing for 30 minutes to an hour, and then being able just to unplug and be like, well, that was fun.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you get owned in those games as much as I do, because I feel like, I'm like a competent video game player, but especially for something like that's been out for a little while, and I know you've been really busy, so you haven't been playing it as much as, these kids who come home and just play it nonstop and have figured out all the little intricacies of the game and stuff. Do you just get dropped into these multiplayer levels and are immediately destroyed, or are you sort of able to hold your own in those?
Here's the thing. I'm usually really good at Call of Duty games. But for whatever reason, both with the first Battlefront and with the new one, I'm not really that good. It's been kind of frustrating because I feel like I'm doing everything that I should. I'm not playing stupidly, but yeah, I'm just not having an easy. I don't know if the controllers are slightly different, or maybe it's just the way you can maneuver is different from how you maneuver players in Call of Duty. I'm not sure what it is. If it's the game itself, but I don't have as easy a time with Battlefront as I do with Call of Duty, and I do find myself dying a lot. So I have been getting better since I've had time to play now, so I don't know if I just need a little more time to get used to it. But yeah, I'm definitely nowhere near being as good, and I get killed so much.
It's all downhill from here, Brad. My multiplayer skills went out about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I can't get back into it. It's gone forever. All single player for me.
Well, tell me this, guys, because I haven't played this game. I'm not a good video gamer, but is there a matchmaking system where it actually pits you against people of your same level of skill, or is it just a free for all? You go in there and you could be against, experts or newbies?
It's usually a pretty healthy mix. The matchmaking system that they have in Call of Duty is pretty good. You're usually up against similar skill sets and that kind of thing. But, even then, you're bound to encounter people who are, really good at the game and maybe have just started playing, and so you'll still get your ass kicked either way. But you'll always encounter people who are really good at the game no matter what level you're at. But it's generally not bad as far as matchmaking is concerned.
Okay, we are running long. We were going to talk about our favorite gifts we got for Christmas. I'm now thinking, since this week is there's almost no big news this week, if we should just talk about this and call this a episode for 2 days. We will probably won't have a podcast tomorrow. Yeah, I think that I'm going to make the executive decision. That's what we're doing. So this episode is probably going to be some extra long episode, but you won't be getting an episode tomorrow because the news is kind of slow. Yeah. So yeah, favorite gifts we got for Christmas. I'll start this off. My girlfriend Ketra got me the Hot Toys life-size Baby Groot replica, which is from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I was lucky to be on the set of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I remember the prop master. We were interviewing the prop master, and I asked him, is there any prop, he had some props, he had us, we could wear the headphones that, Star-Lord had and stuff like that. And I asked him, is there any prop in this movie that is going to be, the one that everybody's talking about? And he looks at me, he looks at his walkie-talkie, and he's like, bring out something. I don't know. He said some kind of code word. I don't know what it was, but then two guys with this briefcase come walking over. And they place this briefcase in front of us, and they like unlock it. Like there's these locks. It's almost like it's like important Pentagon documents or something. And they open it up, and inside that briefcase was life-size baby Groot that they used on the film. During each shot, they would use it for lighting, and you know they would have someone actually like not puppeteering it, but because it's obviously all CG, but so that people could get their eye lines and stuff, and it looked as real as it could possibly look. And I remember holding my hand. I was like, I hope they produce a replica of this because I would love to own, you know, baby Groots. And Sideshow has released the Hot Toys version of this. I think Sideshow also has their own version. The Hot Toys, as you know, makes incredible figures and stuff, and Groot is no different. It has 3 different heads. You can put him in his the outfit that the Ravagers put him in, and it's great. I have him sitting next to my life-size E.T. and life-size Gizmo from Gremlins in my living room, and it's it's awesome. And the other thing I got for Christmas, I kind of bought myself, is I got my girlfriend Kitra a cam to watch our puppy. So it's like a streaming webcam, and we weren't able to set that up because the internet signal was so crappy in our place. So I decided to go out and buy a new router. I bought the Google Wi-Fi router system, which comes with like 3 different hubs, and you can put them throughout your house. And I haven't, you know, my router I think was a Apple time capsule, so that's from like what, 10 years ago, something like that. Boy, does the internet speed like go so fast throughout my home now. And before I had like multiple networks. I had a network in my bedroom, and I had a network in the living room. So when you left the living room, went to the bedroom, my phone was still connected to the living room Wi-Fi, and it like wasn't working. Then I had to switch it to the other Wi-Fi. Now it's all one network. I know I'm probably, you know, spouting the virtues of a mesh network when everybody probably already has a mesh network at this point, but it's awesome. And I recommend to anybody who, you know, is living in the dark ages of not being able to, you know, access their Wi-Fi in different areas of the home to look into this. But I am really enjoying the Google Wi-Fi router, and I'm getting like 300 and something megabits per second download. It's insane. I'm actually kind of angry at myself for not upgrading sooner. But HT, what did you get for Christmas?
So I got something that I don't think anyone here will really relate to, but I got a ton of Korean skincare, and this is something I'm really excited.
What is the difference between normal skincare and Korean skincare?
Okay, so Korean skincare usually encompasses about like a 12-step routine in the morning and at night. And it includes things like serum, essence, toner, and face masks, and all these other crazy things that you wouldn't really expect you need to put on your face. But I find the whole routine very therapeutic, especially at night when you're just kind of trying to unwind. You can just put some music on and start doing your face. And I don't use makeup at all, but I really enjoy Korean skincare just because of like how therapeutic it is. And especially in the winter when my skin gets really dry, it's a lot of fun. And putting a face mask on and then falling asleep is just like a great time to me. And I haven't gone to the doctor in like a long time now, but maybe if my insides die, at least my skin will look radiant. So that's something that I'm really happy about getting. I just got like 5 gifts of Korean skincare from my aunts and uncles and my mom and dad and everything like that. And a really cute sort of like bunny headband thing that will hold my hair back when I do my Korean skincare. So that one is something that I'm excited for to use. And I also got a Costco deal, sort of movie pass Fandor year-long subscription. So this was something that I just started hearing about from like random people who hadn't really heard of Movie Pass, but they go to Costco a lot apparently. So they were asking me like, oh, have you heard of Movie Pass? It has like a year-long subscription for like $89.99, but it also includes Fandor, which is the streaming service. My mom, knowing that I love movies so much, got me this year-long subscription, even though I kind of already have my own movie pass. So I'm going to see if I can sort of streamline it into there, or like cancel my other one, because this way I won't have to pay for it. So that's really exciting for me because it also includes Fandor and get to stream a lot of films. I hadn't heard of Fandor beforehand, but I think it has a good collection. I don't know if Chris knows anything about this because of his streaming column, but that one it apparently has 5,000 movies available on the streaming service. So that, I think, is a good deal in combination with Movie Pass. So those are the gifts that I'm excited for. It's not something that like anyone I think listens to would be particularly excited for, but I'm just really happy to treat my skin well, even as the rest of my body slowly dies.
I do know this. I tried to use my Movie Pass on Christmas Day to go see a movie, and the whole app was down. I couldn't, request the tickets. So, they just announced they have 1 million subscribers now, and it doesn't seem like their system is able to deal with that, especially on a busy day like Christmas. Chris, how does Fandor stack up against the other streaming services? Do you know?
They're good. They're more, I guess I'd use the term art house. They're not as art housey as like Filmstruck, but they do have a lot of like niche titles that Netflix doesn't have and Amazon doesn't have. So they're a fairly good service. It's not like entirely mainstream stuff, but it's a good service overall.
Awesome.
Chris, what did you get over Christmas?
I got the iPhone X, which kind of made me feel like a jerk because my wife got it for me, and I got her, I got her a bunch of stuff, but the biggest thing I got her was this very nice, fancy coat, and I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm gonna win Christmas this year by getting her this fancy coat, and then she gives me the iPhone X, and I was like, oh, well, now I feel like an asshole for not getting you something this big. But it's good. I'm not entirely used to it yet. It feels very like fragile in my hands for some reason. It's very.
Did you have the Plus before this?
Yeah. And I don't know. Like
I found the same thing. Like it's smaller, so it feels like it's gonna fall out of my hands. It's gonna break. I got a case. I usually didn't have a case before this, and I got a case that kind of bulks it up more, and I actually feel better with the case now.
Yeah, I might have to get a bulky case like that. Yeah, just because it's very, it's like all glass, so I'm just paranoid that if I just hold it too hard, it's going to like shatter in my hands. But beyond that, I mean, it's got like, the photos this thing takes are like high quality studio grade photo. It's kind of insane that it has that good of a camera on it. So that was the big gift I got this year.
And Ben, what was the gift that you got this year?
I got a bunch of cool stuff, but the one thing that I wanted to highlight was I got a bunch of board games. So hearing you guys talk about board games, I've never really been into that whole scene. I've just never, I don't know why. It's not like I'm opposed to it. I just never, spent the time to buy myself any of these games.
Oh, I'm going to have to invite you over to the next game night.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool. So my wife got me 4 board games, just like out of nowhere. I had no idea she was doing this. I didn't ask for them, but I think it's going to be one of my favorite gifts. We have not broken into any of them, so I'm going to run down a couple of those for you guys and see if Jacob and Peter, I know you guys are the big board game nuts, and see if you guys have any good things to say about these. I hope you do. So she was looking for. So basically,
Jacob and I are both now sitting here in fear that you're going to say like Monopoly.
No. No, it's not that. No. So we both like to just like sort of stay in and hang out with each other. So it's a lot of two-person games. So one of them is called Lost Cities, and that looks pretty cool to me. I don't know anything about any of these, so I can't even describe what the gameplay is like or anything. I'm just going to have to rely on the fact that you guys know more about this stuff than I do.
Some people say that's one of the best 2-player games of all time. A lot of people recommend it for couples.
Awesome.
I've yet to play it. I own it, but I have yet to play it.
Very cool.
I haven't played Lost Cities, but Rainer Knizia, who's the designer, he's brilliant. He's extremely prolific. He's designed hundreds of games. Many of them are garbage, but the good ones are spectacular. Very thoughtful, very fast, very ingeniously intricate. The kind of games where you play them once and it clicks and you want to play again immediately. I think you're in for, even though I can't personally vouch for Lost Cities, I played enough of his other games to say you're in for a good time.
Awesome. There's one called Jaipur. I think that's how you pronounce it. Jaipur. Have you guys heard of this one?
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good. It's a good bar game. Kind of game you want to go sit in a quiet nook and make all the numbers go in your direction. I really like it.
Sweet. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a quicker thing, something that you can just sort of like drop in on real quick if you have a little bit of time to kill. So that'll be cool. There's one called Seven Wonders Duel that looks pretty sweet.
It's another game I have not played that, but I played Seven Wonders, the game it's based on, and that is fantastic. Your wife has definitely done some research here and did some good games. Like, it seems like she actually knows wherever she got this information. It seems like she got good intel.
That's good. Yeah, I think she was just like combing through best of lists for 2-player games and just like cross-referencing them, across the entire internet. So that one looks cool. And then the other one, the last one, is like a co-op game, and it's called Codenames Duet. Have you guys heard about this?
Yes, the vanilla Codenames is one of the best party games of the past 10, 20 years. It's it's made by a small Eastern European company. He used to make like these sort of abstract games that didn't sell well in the mainstream, but Codenames is like their new flagship series, and the main game's competitive, and you can find it everywhere now. It's at Target now, when it used to like only be in specialty game stores.
They now make like a Disney version of it, a Marvel version of it, so it's like huge.
Oh wow!
You can't go wrong with Codenames. It's a solid design, whether you're playing competitive or the co-op version. And if you like the co-op, I would recommend picking up the competitive as well. I can break the game out for any group of any age, and people have a great time. And so you have a really good collection going here.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to just like, take a weekend with her and just dive into these things. So it should be cool.
Jacob, what did you get over Christmas?
Well, about 2 years ago, my friends helped me build a gaming PC, and it's been hooked up to my television with me sort of playing at my coffee table whenever I needed to play a game. But now that I'm in a house where I have my own office, my own space, I actually have been trying to build my own actual area to actually have my computer situated to hog TV space. And thanks to my family, I now have that. I had a desk already from moving in. My wife bought me a monitor. My mom bought me some speakers. My sister-in-law bought me a nice mouse, a nice mouse pad. My mother-in-law bought me a keyboard. It's actually one of those fancy mechanical keyboards. I'm actually going to clack on it right now so you can hear the super. I don't know if you can hear that now, but it's super satisfying clicking noise. So it feels really nice in your hands. And so it just nothing like super fancy, like nothing like that like by themselves will blow you out of the water. But I now have a space, my own personal space with a nice monitor and nice equipment to actually play video games. So if my wife wants to watch stuff downstairs, I don't have to bother her anymore, which is the way it used to be in the past. And it's a nice thing. Like I said, nothing is going to blow anyone away. But 2017 was one of the best years for video games in a long, long, long time. I know we're a movie podcast, but if you play video games, it's been a hell of a year. So I'm excited to have a space where I can really dive into stuff I've been missing.
And lastly, Brad, what did you get for Christmas?
So the thing that I was most excited to get was this cool book that is the Ectomobile's owner's manual. It's designed very similar to like the owner's manual that you would see for an actual car. The cover even looks like the old school design for the cars, where you see like a blueprint-esque drawing of the car, and inside of it is just a lot of different details about the Ectomobile itself and all the different features it has and capabilities, and just cool images that you've never seen inside, as far as the detail of the car before, and how the team works with and everything. It also dives into the Ecto 1A from the second movie, and the new Ecto 1 from the Ghostbusters reboot. So it's just a cool book for a hardcore Ghostbusters fan like me, and I'd really wanted it for a while and held off buying it to ask for it for Christmas. And so my parents picked that up for me. But easily the best Christmas gift that I got was just being done with student teaching and getting my life back. It's been so nice just to be able to get back to the schedule that I was used to before and not come home and have all this extra work to do on top of trying to keep up with slash film stuff to the best of my ability. It was essentially like having 2 full-time jobs, and now it's nice having my free time back and sleeping in a little bit and having time to go out with my friends, especially those who are here in town for the holidays, and just, kind of get back to enjoying being myself again, because it was a long 3.5 months, with very little time to myself. And so now it's just, I'm feeling much more relaxed and stress-free.
Well, Brad, let me speak for everyone in saying that we're glad to have you back on the site in a bigger capacity, and I'm sure the listeners are going to be glad to have you on the podcast more often now that you are not doing the teaching. I know you were furthering yourself, but we missed you.
Well, I appreciate that, and thanks to the entire Slash Film team for picking up the slack while I was gone for 3.5 months, and not doing nearly as much as I normally would for the site. It was a big help to not have to worry about keeping up with a lot of that stuff. Everybody pitched in a variety of different ways whenever other people had to step away while I was gone, and I was unable to write as much. So it was thanks to the entire Slash Film team for making that easy for me to accomplish.
And
Welcome back, Brad.
yes.
Hooray!
Some of us didn't miss you.
I'm not surprised.
No, I'm Brad's great. I'm very happy to have him back, and I feel like the Slash Film team's always solid. We're always a great group, but Brad always does bring a perspective that I always appreciate, and I really do feel like he's been missed, and I'm very happy that he's back.
Thanks, man.
We've been missing the humor, primarily. The humor and the stupid opinions. Okay. Anyways, this has gone long enough. We are over an hour. So we're going to end it here. You can find more about all the things that we mentioned today in the show notes and on slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, all the popular podcast apps. If you have a question for us, concern, suggestion, you can send an email to the mailbag at peter@slashfilm.com. That's peter@slashfilm.com. Please give us a rating and a review of the podcast on iTunes. Help spread the word. Tell your friends. And we won't see you tomorrow because we're going to be taking tomorrow off on the podcast, and Monday is also New Year's. So we will see you next time on Tuesday, January 2nd. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.